Pregame.com.
Patriots -3 at Pittsburgh. Here's the question. Let's put this into context. Is Pittsburgh's a 3-point home dog. They have not been more than a 3-point home dog in over 10 seasons. So this is a historic situation, 10 plus years. The question I ask, and this is where I want to start the conversation, is either of these questions, an answer is yes. One, is Pittsburgh as bad as they've ever been in the last 10 years? Or are the Patriots as good, if not better, than any team in the last 10 years? By the way, I think this is a somewhat rhetorical question. I think the answer is no to both.
Right.
What's your opinion?
Well, obviously it's no to both, but it's the circumstance of what we have right now.
And what are the circumstances? What is the circumstance?
Well, the circumstances are that the Pittsburgh Steelers are a good team. They're not a great team this year.
Usually great teams aren't getting money or getting points an hour.
Absolutely, but this is not the Pittsburgh Steelers team that we've seen in the last few years. We both agree to that. New England, I don't think this is the best New England team we've seen, but they're coming into this game with all of the benefits in theory. They've had 2 weeks to prepare. They're coming off their bye week. It's a great spot for them. You know, the Steelers had to go out on the road last week. Steelers have a big game the following week. You're not going to look past New England. You know, that would be stupid. But trust me, they know their biggest game of the year is next week.
So we could say, and trust me, that I wrote Marco loves Pittsburgh underneath seat number 784 last time you were at the Steeler game. That's a fact, but is it an influence? So let's drill down, because it's just too easy to tick off the facts without understanding, are they meaningful? Are they either meaningful, or if they are meaningful, are they baked into the line? So right now, do you think it's meaningful? Would your line on this game be adjusted by the fact that Pittsburgh plays Baltimore next week?
It's maybe a half a point.
Half a point?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you're, again, just for those that think that's crazy, and I can kind of hear what you're saying, is Marco, and since he came to pregame.com, 68 winners, 29 losers on teams in the Pittsburgh area. That's football, college and pro, and basketball, 68 and 29. I'm shocked at that number. I think not only is this potentially for home field advantage in the playoffs, I mean, listen, San Diego, who's going to be the number one seed here? It's going to likely be the AFC North winner or New England. Mm-hmm. So to me, if Pittsburgh can win this game, not only is it a win, but it's a tiebreaker if it becomes for the number one seed. I mean, San Diego doesn't look like the type of team that's going to be competing, and certainly the South isn't going to, or very likely isn't going to have that team. So to me, I think the motivation here because of that is high, but additionally, New England's been embarrassing Pittsburgh. I know personally as a fan, I would love, I don't know, let me ask you as a fan, if you had to split these two games, and, you know, there's an interdivision tiebreaker, but emotionally, which game would you rather win? Pittsburgh, New England, or Pittsburgh, Baltimore?
I don't know. There's just something about me with the Pittsburgh and the Baltimore.
No, I hear you, but because, I mean, man, this New England team has our number more than any team.
There's no question about it, and I think that actually goes into part of that line when you talk about it. There is no team in football that has dominated the Steelers the way New England has. And it's a fundamental thing. New England is the one where teams are starting to copy, trying to beat Pittsburgh, is their game plan where they spread the field on the Steelers. They're the first ones that came out throwing at the Steelers.
So let's dig into this, because I personally am going to be looking at the over here, and if I had to pick a winner, man, I don't know, because I thought this line honestly would be New England 1. So at 3, I can't think there's not value on Pittsburgh. That's a double negative, so there is value on Pittsburgh. But here's the reason that the Harrison injury, outside linebacker, 2008 Defensive Player of the Year, still top, you know, I would say 15 linebacker in the league from what I hear of people that really know that kind of stuff. they haven't really been hurt by him not being there. What happened is they moved Timmons outside, who's playing fine out there, and then they brought Larry Foote inside. And Larry Foote is, let's call it, he's slowish. And James Ferrier is slowish. And we saw a play last week in which, against Arizona, which I can tell you was one of the most troubling plays this year for me. Running back caught a ball over the middle about 8 yards down the field. One guy slipped, Troy slipped, and an 80-yard play. I mean, literally, it's years between the Steelers giving up 80-yard plays because the trick to that defense is how well they tackle. But the fact of the matter is Timmons is a young guy that's athletic, that can play the middle and guard tight ends and guard running backs. Now we got two slow guys in the middle. I think this is the first week that the Harrison's injury is going to be super meaningful, and I think that whatever we did last year against the New England offense, we're going to have even more trouble this year. So to me, if you think Pittsburgh's going to be in the game, it's going to be a shootout. To me, New England's going to get their 30 points. The question is, are we going to have more than that or even close to that?
Well, I agree. In one thing, and last week I had Pittsburgh over as a big play because I thought the Steeler defense was going to give up some points last week. And one of the things that I said, they haven't faced any really good quarterbacks this year. They're facing Tom Brady. This is obviously the best quarterback.
See, that's the thing we talked about last week. Who are the good quarterbacks?
Well, there's
just name them. No Wells, name them.
Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers.
Phillip Rivers is one of them.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers is one of them.
All right, go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. I put Ben in the category.
All right, they can't play against Ben. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm drawing a blank.
Brees.
Drew Brees.
And that's it.
You got 6 or 7 top elite quarterbacks in the NFL.
All right, so if Big Ben's one of them, and I think certainly this year you look at Rivers and there's question marks. There's 4 of them. All right, so we haven't played one of 4 teams, is what you're saying.
But
because if a guy like the Houston quarterback doesn't make the
he's in the second tier.
Well, whatever you're calling the second tier, he is a top 10 quarterback. There's no doubt. Well, go down the list. Keep going.
But let's look at it from the other side of the spectrum. Let's say who they have played, the defense. They played Seattle.
Then say it. Then I'll listen to you say it. We've played some really bad quarterbacks.
We've played some really bad quarterbacks.
I agree. And maybe some of the worst quarterbacks because backups and the whole thing. And again, this is something I've been preaching for years now, is if you rank the quarterbacks 1 through 30, okay, and whoever, or I guess it's 32, you say 20 and above, every time Pittsburgh plays one of them, bet on Pittsburgh. Even if they're lane 14, lane whatever. 10 or below, bet against Pittsburgh. In between, pass. In the last 3 or 4 years, you'd have an amazing ATS record. Because the way that defense is, unless you can really be special as a quarterback, it's really hard. Even this year, it's really hard. Now, just today, it came out Casey Hampton looks like he's going to play, which is going to solidify that D-line even more. All right, let's talk about something else. On a scale of how many teams in the NFL are as marquee, as publicly favored as the Patriots?
Oh, they're the number 1 team right now, I would say.
Right. I agree. Whatever that top group is, if the Cowboys are in it just because they're the America's team, Steelers are in it, right. New England's in it.
Right.
All right. ATS record on the road, where the Belichick thing, in theory, he knows how to travel. 46 winners ATS, 22 losers. All right, so 8 games a year, we're looking at 68 games. 8 times 8, you're looking at 8+ years of road games in which they're hitting at over 66%. Now, isn't the theory 101, and kind of my theory, that when you have a team that everyone loves, that wins the Super Bowl, that there's a coach they do special documentaries on, isn't that the teams to fade?
It is. The point that I'll say here, and probably why you agreed, Belichick teams are the best. They're fundamentally sound coach teams. When you're on the road, you're laying a smaller number. Okay, so now you're in a situation where you just basically have to win the game to do well. And this goes back to that one stat that me and you always talk about, but again last week, every game but one, spread had no bearing. You win the game, you cover the spread.
Listen, let's make this simpler, okay? Is the spread is the expectation of how well the team is going to do. In theory, over 10 years, if you have enough sample size, the spread should be right around 50%. You can't go into an NFL database and find hardly any situation that has more than 500 samples that isn't in the 48 to 52% range. You could say, road favorites, road dog. Now, if you say, well, road favorites over a touchdown, now you're getting down, there might be 100 games, and it might end up being 55%. And the lower the number, the more variance there is. But the spread, Vegas is, the reason that most people don't make a living at sports betting is Vegas's numbers are very good. One of our basic assumptions are that if you go with the Super Bowl champions, if you go with a marquee team, a marquee coach, a marquee quarterback, you're laying an extra half point or a point every game. How in the heck can you be laying an, it doesn't, if you're on the road and there's a 6-point swing from home or whatever, is if you're laying an extra half a point every game, how can you be 88 games in and be at a 68% win percentage unless fundamentally you're undervalued, which is possible. You can say, yeah, the public has a premium on them, but a premium from a power ranking which is just plain wrong. Maybe the public thinks the power ranking is 60, throwing a number out, 90, so the premium makes it a 91, but maybe the true power ranking is a 96. So I just guess the question is, when do you start fading Belichick on the road when you have 8 years of him winning almost 70% as a handicapper?
It definitely is, it's a hard number to buck. But again, me as a handicapper, there's different ranges of lines. There's lines where...
But over the course of 8 years, they have laid over a touchdown. They've been underdogs. The whole spectrum of lines have been there.
I understand that totally, RJ, but it's a handicapper that's been doing it for 32 years. There's 3 different zones of lines. There's 3 and less where you're handicapping the game, pick the winner. When you go from 3 to 7, now you're in the mid-marginal range where you're still handicapping the game that you think the team can win the game outright, but there's a possibility that you're playing this game. It's going to be a field goal type game. You handicap it even, and that's a cushion for you. You're getting that full score of, in that range from 3 to 7. So if it falls at 3, you cover. But then when you're over 7, now you've got to look at a team. Is this a team that has killer instincts? And is the team that they're playing a team that has backdoor capabilities and can get blown out? It's 3 different types of handicap to me. I don't look at just blanket numbers, but I understand what you're saying is they're outperforming Vegas at a 68% clip. You're absolutely right with that. I look at it in 3 different zones.
Well, I think the zones make sense, but there's no ATS trend that we could give that you couldn't have given that exact same spiel. Is I could have said that underdog, or I could have said home teams in this spot, you could have said, yes, but there's 3 possible ways to handicap, or 3 different line ranges. And you're absolutely right. But it doesn't change that he's been involved in all of them, and he's winning almost 70% of the games on the road. And to me, what makes it even more shocking is the fact that this is a guy with a premium on him, Belichick and Brady. So to me, I just think the wise guys are going to keep saying, take the points, take the points. I'm not anxious to do that. So my projection here is going to be 30, New England 30, Pittsburgh 27. I'm looking to go over. One last stat, Pats have gone over 20 out of 26, which is the same old thing. Everyone's betting Patriots over, and it's still going over. Now, that's 26 reps. It's not enough to go crazy on, but when you get, now we're past 70% too, is when you get up to the 20 out of 26, now you don't need as many reps for it to be meaningful. That's probably not meaningful yet to me, but boy, it's getting close.
In one last point there, you brought about when was the last time Pittsburgh was a home underdog of this number. I would have to go back and look, but I would be curious, when was the last time the Steelers had an over-under in the 50s?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'll write that one down. All right, guys. We're doing a special thing right now in which in the forum we are having a continuing conversation about every video from no matter who the combination of guests are. You can go to pregamevideos.com. If you have any questions or you want to correct Marco on anything, you can do it right there. Talk to you then.